So to start off, Dave, you're the Jedi General here. If let's start off where the season ended with a trio of some of the most popular episodes that introduced a certain young bounty hunter to be. Yes, let's take a look at those episodes.
Sure.
Can you talk about the genesis of Clone Wars episodes? How does that all happen?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things when we bring a major character from the classic trilogy to the Clone Wars that I wanted to stress is how one of the biggest ways that Clone Wars is different than anything else out there in the Star Wars universe. It's all the novels, the comics, everything that goes on in the massive creativity, which is the Star Wars EU, is that George works directly on the Clone Wars on practically a weekly basis. This is exactly the type of work he did when he worked with Irvin Kershner or Richard Marquand on the classic films, because he moved to more of an executive producer role, overseeing the whole thing. When we get a story to do in the Clone Wars, you can be assured that it comes directly from George. And these meetings all start out the same way. I go over to the big house on the ranch, and we go into a big conference room and sit down, and George is with myself and some of the writers, Harry Silver, producer of Clone Wars, and he says, here are the ideas that I'd like to see come to life in this season. So when he brings up a word like Boba Fett, absolutely the fan inside me is going, oh well, this is going to be awesome, because George Lucas is about to talk about Boba Fett. That's still there. At the same time I go, oh my gosh, are we going to have any continuity issues come on? So let's look at that, and let's look at Boba Fett. So what starts out, I have my notebook with me when I talk with George, and from the very beginning, what I do is, while the writers are taking copious notes on script ideas, I'm taking a lot of those notes down as well, but at the same time, I start drawing visually what this is going to look like in a very rough way. These are some of the very rough sketches that I do. What would the young Boba Fett look like? Down in the lower right-hand corner, you see Admiral Killian, a rough sketch of his face. George is an extremely visual guy. The best way to sell any idea to him is actually create it, draw it, paint it, whatever, and get it in front of him. So you can see, even on the day that we're working on an episode, and that back in 2009, you see the date, everything I write down. I'm thinking of shots, I'm thinking of compositions, I'm thinking of how hallways are going to hook up. Everything, just like a feature film, we have to communicate so that Joel, Killian, along down the line, are going to be able to assemble this, what turns into a massive amount of work for a 22-minute episode. Continue on. And then once I get these sketches all done, and I've worked it out a little with George in our discussions with him, I get these designs in front of Killian, and that's where we move on to more of a, so what would Boba Fett look like post-Attack of the Clones? It's not just simple answers. Daniel Logan is just a young guy, as he might have several months. How many months after the Clone Wars episode Attack the Clones is this taking place? And we had a lot of decisions to make. You can chime in anytime.
I think the first thing we had to figure out was how different would he look, or would he look that different at all? We tried things like ponytails, we tried short hair, we tried stuff that's pretty close to the way he appears in the movie. We definitely sort of kept the sort of classic Boba Fett jumpsuit in mind, the flight suit that's underneath everything, because we felt that would at least tie us in some way back to the original trilogy, and people would sort of relate to that and understand that that's the same guy, just younger. So yeah.
At this point, did you know that it was going to be a big clone cadet, so you realized how one design would have to dictate the others as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. We're always thinking of ways to sort of ease the pain. So we knew that if we could get this one, because he is the clone template, so we knew that if we needed young clones as long as Boba worked, we were pretty much good to go. We just need some interesting hairdos. We'd be all set.
Yeah, it was a benefit. I can't honestly tell you how we would create the series if the clones weren't all exactly alike. It'd be practically impossible to create that many assets, to do a whole battle with that many different people. But with Boba, I knew one thing was that I had seen stills, growing up as a Star Wars fan, where I saw Boba Fett classically posed in the same position as Clint Eastwood from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly poster. And I knew that at the heart of it, Ben Burtt added spurs when he walks out after they've captured Han Solo. He is the man with no name. That's Boba Fett. We were doing a very tricky thing by adding a lot more to that name, more of a history. And so that became, we had to infuse kind of that, what was Clint Eastwood like? How did that guy grow up? I tried to look at other movie sources, Sergio Leone. I took a lot of that into episode 220, Lethal Trackdown, and you might notice by the time they go and arrive at Hondo's base, I tried to shoot it like more of a Sergio Leone film, a spaghetti western where, you know, they land, the ship is very quiet. I talked to Joel around about I wanted, you know, dust moving around and tumbleweeds we added just to get that kind of cowboy feel when they sit down at the table. So in honor of kind of where Boba Fett and even Cad Bane, who really is Lee Van Cleef in so many ways, and where these kind of bounty hunter gunslingers come from.
Yes, yeah, that is my drawing. So yeah, this was one of the few. We had a lineup of these. I mean, the body, everything from the neck down is the same, and the face is almost the same, but Boba does have a unique face texture, just so he would stand out a little bit from everything else. And then this is him with the poncho on and the poncho off. This was for the next episode in the story. This was for 218.
We had to decide if he was going to have the helmet or not. That was kind of a big deal because, I mean, obviously Boba Fett, the icon, is the helmet.
Yeah.
But it turns out when he's that young, he looks like a bobblehead. So we had to kind of go away from that.
Yeah, we did keep the guns. The guns are very slightly cheated. I mean, they should be even bigger than they are. But it works, you know, so we let them on because they're cool.
You got the knee pads in there.
Yeah, well, we kept little hints of his evolving costume because over time I figured, you know, with the Death Watch out there, there's so much Mandalorian armor in the galaxy, and Boba Fett is shown in the films to even have different types of the armor, different jetpacks, different gauntlets that he probably, because of his father, amassed quite a bit of what he could, assuming that, you know, it gets shut down after the Clone Wars, it's not really being made anymore, the armor that is.
So yeah, that's pretty much Boba with the flat top.
I love every his talks are always like, yeah, I drew that. I don't really like it, but I'd like to improve it somewhat. Well, there's always season 3.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's more. Actually, the one here that was fun was Young Rex.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know why, I thought it was funny to see his well grown.
Bleach blonde hair. Or saying now, we had a lot of decisions to make here. One of the things you find when you go through the EU is that, you know, there seems to be something about Star Wars with really pale-skinned, bald villains. And I don't know why, but in our show we ended up, once we put Aura in, we got 2. We got Ventress and we got Aura Singh. If you look at their backgrounds in the comic book, the odd thing is they're actually really relatively similar. Most of these girls start off with, like, you know, they trained with the Jedi, they don't train with the Jedi anymore, they fell out of, you know, some kind of training with the Jedi. They get really angry because of that, the Jedi Master dies. Both of them, really, their story. And then they go on into a life of crime or a Sith Lordship. So one of the things that George wanted to stress with Aura Singh is that, you know, she has no Force abilities. She's not wielding lightsabers. And we went down to the archive and got the actual Aura Singh costume out and found out there aren't lightsabers on the costume, which is kind of a big misperception about the character.
Yeah.
On her back, as you pointed out.
Yeah, it's actually some sort of weird sort of gunshot sound thing. It's basically just 2 canisters in a pocket. Because the ponytail sort of obscures where the connection is, it does look an awful lot like it is 2 lightsabers, but we just decided to sort of stick with what the actual costume is because it worked with this version of the yeah, those aren't lightsabers.
That ponytail was probably one of the scariest effects we had to do in that season because that much simulation of hair, as you guys know, and as commonly pointed out, Anakin's hair, he's got like the best galactic gel in the galaxy. I mean, the reason for that, I'll be very honest, is just it's a simplification for our style for what we can do. Now, season 3, probably not a spoiler, we actually get the hair moving a little bit. So, big thank you, Joel. It's not like crazy, it's not like Fabio all over, but you know, it's getting better. At least so when they're on a speeder bike, you know, it just doesn't sit there in perfection. So, I know it really bothers some people. They talk about it on the Force Cast.
Yeah. We try.
We do our best. We do our very best.